If they're unable to acquire bitfarms, which is looking like the base case, will they dump the 19.9% ownership that they have in bitfarms? And wouldn't that cause a big drawdown in the stock price? Like, I think that's one major concern. And Tristan, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that concern.
I think that the likelihood that they dump it is about moderate. I think that, but I think on that front, I think the likelihood that they dump it is actually pretty low. I think they'd be more likely to hang on to it and try and offload at least some of it at a higher price. Because at current stages, we're probably not super far off of their cost basis. And so if they're trying to offload the position, logically, from my perspective, I feel like they'd be wanting to get a return on it. And at current prices, they're basically not. So on that front, I think it's in fact it'd probably be a loss for the most part. So on that front, I think it's unlikely that they'd want to take a loss. So I think they'd be more likely to sell it after there is at least some of a run. And on that front, maybe they would have an impact on the stock price. In fact, they probably would have an impact on the price, bringing it down. But at the same time, someone's going to be buying it from them. And so I think there are other industries and institutions who are also going to want to buy Bitfarms shares. And if we're not selling to them, someone's Riot might be the one selling to them. So I don't know. It might crash the stock, but I don't think it's like necessarily a ridiculous risk. I think it would also just be short-term pain at the time of the stock sale. I don't think it would be long-term pay. And if they're selling it out slowly, I think that it's going to be a minimal impact. It's going to be, and that's realistically what I think that they would likely do is sell it slowly. And I think at that point, the selling would have less of an impact on the shares than the number of people trying to purchase it. But they also may still be trying to acquire Bitfarms at some point, so they may also have an incentive not to sell and instead hang on to the stocks, hang on to their shares, and try to at a later point convince them to sell to Riot. So we'll really have to see how it plays out. In my opinion, it's a lot of capital from Riot just kind of sitting there in Bitfarms. And at Bitfarms runs, I feel like from a company perspective, you would want to sell. I also think one thing we should remember with regards to both the board members who have been added, who are added or potentially added to Bitfarms, and from Riot itself, is that they both Riot has a fiduciary responsibility to its own shareholders to try and maximize its return. So selling Bitfarms shares out of spite is not going to, and taking the stock basically for no reason and not getting a profit for it or losing money for it is, it's not very aligned with your meeting your fiduciary responsibilities. I'll say that. And then on that front, the new board members, if they are acting in a reasonable fashion as board members, they shouldn't be inclined to sell to Riot at the same time, because again, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders of Bitfarms now that they are a board member, in which case they shouldn't be willing to sell to Riot because Riot is offering a terrible deal, or was offering a terrible deal. So we'll see how it plays out, because again, that's just, someone's morals are kind of a factor on that one.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Like the board members that, regardless if it's added by Riot or proposed by Riot or proposed by Bitfarms, technically they're supposed to be independent, right? And like at least theoretically, and of course, like Riot has an incentive to appoint board members who are more partial to their point of view. I get that, but just I think there is a world where, like you said, Riot's like kind of incentives are aligned with Bitfarms incentives, right? Because Riot is Bitfarms' biggest shareholder now, so technically, if Bitfarms stock skyrockets, that's good for Riot as well, right? So if Riot does things to like suppress the stock price of Bitfarms, well, they own 20% of it, right? And as you said, if they start dumping that for a loss, then that sucks for everyone, right? It's going to look bad on Riot too. So like maybe Riot shareholders will start to get mad as well and dump their stocks. So I just think that there's ahead of us are two paths, right? This has become my quote of like the week or the month. Ahead of us are two paths. There's a path where both Riot and Bitfarms lose, which is Riot doesn't get their way, and then they dump their shares all at once, and then both stocks go down. Or there's a path where both companies win, where Riot holds on to the Bitfarms shares and tries to like maybe they're genuine, right? Maybe they are actually trying to make Bitfarms better because they own 20% of it, and then Bitfarms becomes better because now they have like a more experienced board that Riot helps them curate, right? And then now both companies can make money, right? So yeah, that's all in all. I think that it's an exciting future for Bitfarms, and I do own Bitfarms, so I don't own Riot, and I think uh, you know I'm happy with that kind of allocation at the moment.